The first thing we're going to do this morning is I want to introduce you all to our Executive Director, Michael Waldman. To the extent you all have been thanking me for this wonderful room, you can thank Michael because, of course, he signs off on the budget for this. So, I did want to introduce you to Michael. I want Michael to say a few words because it's been very important that leadership shows support for this work in all facets. And as leaders, it's good that we demonstrate our support for what we're doing and that we demonstrate our commitment to this work. It's not a very easy thing for the Brennan Center for Justice, whose largest program is the Democracy Program. It's hard to fundraise, as you all know, for our client population. It's hard to convince board members sometimes who don't have that familiarity with our work that this is important, and it's as important in many ways as voting, as important as campaign finance reform. It's a really important thing that you have this kind of relationship and you have this kind of support. So I'm glad that Michael's here. And Michael?
Thank you all for coming here. I wish I could take credit for this wonderful space, which to me always looks like it's the room where the Intergalactic Council meets in Star Wars. We want to thank, in keeping with the institutional imperatives that Thomas alluded to, I want to thank, among many others, NYU and the Ford Foundation and the Open Society Foundation for enabling us to host this event and bring you all here, and in fact for all the work you're able to do through the Community-Oriented Defender Network. And we want to thank them also, or whoever, for the air conditioning. And you will get a chance to see the city melt in front of your very eyes as the day goes on. If it's still there when we're done, we'll be very lucky. Thomas is exactly right. Not only the COD network, but the greater cause of equal access to justice is at the heart of what the Brennan Center does. It's at the heart of, we believe, of what our nation must do, but it's certainly at the heart of how we do our work and what we are pledged to continue focusing on day in and day out. For those of you who don't know the Brennan Center, Justice Brennan famously said, "Law cannot stand apart from the social changes around it." That really animates the Brennan Center. The Brennan Center was started 16 years ago by the family and clerks of Justice Brennan when he left the bench as a great beacon on the Supreme Court. As a living memorial to him, to his vision, not to replicate his views in every jot and tittle, but to take that spirit and his concept of the law as a vehicle to advance common human dignity, to take that spirit forward. We are a think tank, we are a public interest law firm, we are an advocacy group. Someone recently said that we are a think tank with teeth, which is an image I like a lot. And we focus, the way we do our work, is we focus on the systems of democracy and justice. Our premise is that if you don't fix the systems, you won't solve the problems. And that certainly, we believe, is a statement of unfortunate fact when we look at the crisis facing the country today. Our systems of democracy, electoral and governmental democracy, as Thomas said, are broken. We face a massive flood of new corporate money into the electoral system after Citizens United. We see a wave of what we believe to be disenfranchising laws, trying to cut back on voting rights all across the country. As President Clinton said recently, he said compellingly and accurately that it's the most significant rollback in voting rights since the Jim Crow era. And the systems of justice, the systems by which your clients face potential ruinous injustice in their own lives, by which we as a society seek to advance the core mission of public safety, the core mission of safe streets, but to do it in a way that honors our values and respects the rights of individuals. That system, too, is got to be a core focus for all of us. Now, you all deal with this day in and day out, and I know that I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but as somebody who doesn't live this the way you do, I am endlessly struck by the magnitude of the social challenge embodied in the issue of indigent defense and the broader criminal justice system. Every time I encounter these broad aggregate facts, I'm taken aback. And I think that the country would be taken aback too, if it fully understood that we, as you know, have 5% of the world's population and 25% of those in prison. That 8% of all the prisoners in the world are African American men. Those kind of statistics are mind-blowing to people who treat this as, in effect, something that's hiding in plain sight. And so when we work on this, our mission is to help you and the folks who work with all of you represent individual clients, but grapple with larger, also, systemic crisis of our justice system. The infrastructure of justice, in so many basic ways, is crumbling. If we think that we've had a crisis of funding for various aspects of the justice system until now, just wait. As state governments finally are feeling the pinch of the economic crisis, as whatever deal they come up with to grapple with the debt ceiling and everything that's going to come after it takes hold, we're going to see a funding crisis for judges, for courts, even for prosecutors, but certainly, as you know, for indigent defense, like we haven't seen in years. And the scope of all this, again, looking at it from the broadest, widest lens, is staggering. Thomas drew a statistic to my attention that, again, I'm sure many of you know this, but it was a new way of looking at it to me. We're preparing to mark the anniversary of Gideon, the 50th anniversary over the next couple of years with a significant public education campaign, significant communications effort to underscore the significance of that right and of the need to have adequate indigent defense. When Gideon was decided, there were between, depending on the estimates, there were between 250,000 and 300,000 people in the United States in prison. And you know now, of course, that that number is at least 2.2 million and really probably more. This is a monstrously complex challenge. It's a difference in the degree that winds up being a difference in time. As we as a society try to make the rights embodied in Gideon a reality at a time when there's that much larger a part of our society that is caught in the gears of the criminal justice system. Thomas mentioned our work on voting. One of the many, many corollary consequences of the criminal justice system for the other work that we do, again, hiding in plain sight, is the fact that with 65 million people in the United States with some sort of criminal system involvement in the past, the rules for felony disenfranchisement, to take away the right to vote for people with felony convictions, which, number one, is almost unique in the world among democracies, and number two, is overtly, explicitly a relic of Jim Crow and segregation. That in the past 6 months, very significant victories that we have won on felony disenfranchisement have been rolled back in states all across the country. In Florida, once again, there's lifetime felony disenfranchisement. Undoing what Governor Chris, the previous Republican governor there, had done by executive action, the new governor, in about a day, undid. A massive consequence of 1 million people who will be unable to vote in Florida because of their felony conviction in the past. The consequences of all this are manifold for all of our work for the society, and so again, we are deeply, deeply committed to doing what we can to make the systems of justice work. Law cannot stand apart from the social changes around it. We cannot stand apart. So we're delighted to be able to host this event. The entire premise of the Community-Oriented Defender Network is that we will address these challenges best when defenders work together, when organizations work together, when we look at these things not in isolation as a criminal justice matter or even as a matter of representing a client, but in the way all these social challenges intersect. We're so thrilled to to have so many of you here. As many of you know, this group started with 8 organizations. It's now up to 100 nationwide. We've been very blessed to have truly remarkable leadership at the Brennan Center for our work on this. As many of you know, Kirsten Livingston was the first person at the Brennan Center to work on this. She's now the Ford Foundation. She's the person I was thanking in absentia for funding this. She's a leader in the whole criminal justice field. Malenka Clark, who many of you know from her time here at the Brennan Center and from this gathering, who now works at the Justice Department in the Access to Justice Project. And Thomas, who you met, but I just can't, as we say in my part of Brooklyn, I can't cavell enough about Thomas. We are so thrilled to have him join us. He's been in the Brennan Center for less than a year. He comes, as you know, from doing the real work. He comes from years at the Neighborhood Defender Service of Harlem. He brings energy and brain power and passion and charisma to this that has lit, I'll tell you, our board of directors on fire, which is no small thing. We're really delighted that he's doing his work with us. And he will kick off the conference, but first we are very fortunate to be able to hear for just a couple of minutes from someone many of you met yesterday. Mark Childress is the counsel to the Attorney General of the United States on Access to Justice. He runs the Access to Justice office at the Justice Department. The fact that there is an Access to Justice office is good enough, is exciting enough, but the fact that Mark Childress is now leading it for the past 2 months is even more exciting. I've known Mark for many years. We worked together in the White House when he was a member of the counsel's office to the President of the United States. He was one of the leading policy experts and attorneys in the United States Senate for many years, a leading force behind healthcare. Most recently as acting general counsel at the Department of Health and Human Services, but really, in so many ways, the legal and policy brains behind the fact that we now have enacted on the books, however hard it was, however imperfect it was, national health insurance in the United States has a lot to do with Mark Childress. We're really lucky to have you doing this work. We appreciate it greatly. We're thrilled that you're here, and we can't wait to hear what you have to say.
So for those of you who were here yesterday, I'm assuming we have a couple of Burn Jag questions. Okay. Look, I really will just take 2 minutes. The main thing I wanted to say is that, as I said yesterday to the ACCD folks, where I want to try to take our Access to Justice initiative is really in parallel with what the COD network is trying to achieve. The thing for me, first of all, any of you who would think that I did not have a predisposition to care about COD, Malenka Clark, know that, every day I would be reminded of the fact that this is something that is really, really important. But I am predisposed to care about it. It is important. And one of the things that I think is most critical for me is that it's a way for us, so much of what you have to do and what I have to do is really dealing with symptoms, and you have to deal with those symptoms because they are acute, and in some cases a crisis. COD gives us the promise of dealing with more than symptomology, of finding a way to go to the heart of these problems and the way that people are accessing the criminal justice system. And I think that is an enormous opportunity. We at DOJ can be a partner. We obviously have helped fund some initiatives, and I hope we do more. But I also really think that one of the areas that I'm most interested in is working with you to figure out how we can assess the economic and social benefits of COD, because, as Michael referenced, in the times that we're in, we've got to be smart about trying to explain how these sorts of programs can make a difference in the communities and do make a difference in the communities. We just actually are working on an interagency Council on the Homeless report that's going to be out in the next couple of months, I think, or maybe even sooner. And in that, we have an entire section that's just devoted to highlighting the COD sort of approach and what a difference that can make in the homeless area. We're actually, I think, going to be looking at some similar sort of elements, and we're doing the reentry task force that the Attorney General has put together. So look, the reality is There are many things that are on my agenda, but I really want to make sure, I mainly want as well just to see a name and a face so you can track me down. Because in the same way that a message that I had for the ECCD folks was, really try to help us find ways to help you, I feel that way about CFD as well. So that's it, and if there are no burn, jag questions, I'm going to take on. Thank you.